All right. Today, we are going to be talking about why you shouldn't even bother starting a bookkeeping business, why it's totally a thing of the past, and why it's just not worth it. Psych, of course. I mean, obviously, right? But let me tell you the reason why I'm doing this. And I'm very inspired into telling you, like, cut the crap. I'm not going to curse, even though it's going to be a little hard for me, because if you and I were just having this conversation one on one, it's going to be a little bit fierce. So here's the backstory on what's happening. I am about to do a free live series for the first time in 3 years. It's happening, it's kicking off Monday, and it's happening all next week here live on YouTube. Make sure that you are opted in and subscribed. To do that, go to katiefarrow.com/step. This training is about identifying the next step in your bookkeeping business. And I've been promoting it now for a couple of weeks. So when you go and register, there's a question there that says, what are your 3 burning questions? Like, if we were to sit down and have lunch together, what would your questions be about starting or scaling your bookkeeping business? And I'm reading through these questions and I love to see it. I am really I ride this delicate balance of making it safe for you to come to me with things and really giving you the help and strategy and inspiration and push that you need to get you through to the other side. So I want to encourage you to continue to ask me things and know that I am calling out nobody personally, right? This is a theme that I'm seeing. I don't even know whose names are associated with the things that I'm going to call out. But as I'm reviewing these questions, thinking about what can I talk about before we get into this week and what can I talk about in the series to make sure I'm not just answering the things I want to tell you, but also the things that you want to know. So I'm going through and I'm reading it, and there are lots of totally legitimate questions, things that we're going to touch on and stuff like that. And really every question is legitimate, but there is a pretty consistent theme of fear. And I'm a little bit tired of talking just about fear, but that's what this whole episode is for. We're going to make space for it here today. We're going to go deep into it. Know that if you are struggling with thoughts about fear and if it's worth pursuing, if this industry is tapped out, if you really have what it takes, or if AI is coming for our jobs, you're in the right spot. And again, it's totally normal to experience fear. What I don't want to normalize is staying there. And what I don't want to normalize is having illogical, delusional, paralyzing fear. You're allowed to feel fear, but you have to decide which way do you want to go. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to prime it with something that I always talk about in my coaching, something that I became keenly aware of in my life that really, really helped me actually facilitate change, realize what I was capable of, and have the motivation to go out and do it in all realms, because this works for everything. So I always say you can only look at one side of a coin at the same time. And you're either looking at heads or you're looking at tails. You can look at both, but you can't do it at the same time. So today I brought some visuals with me. So you can look at one side of the coin, or you can look at the other at one time. You can spend some time here and you can spend some time here, but you can't do it at the same time. When you're having thoughts, only one is going through your head at one time, one train of thoughts. And while I am a person that really likes to take calculated risks, we're all analytical, you should think through your next move. You should do any investments or any steps mindfully and consciously and with thought. That should happen. So you should look at possible worst case scenarios, and you should also spend some time looking at possibilities. This is what I want you to become very, very aware of. It's an internal practice. It's something only you can do because you're the only one that's in your head. But I want you to start taking note of this. And you could do this in a million different ways. It could just be mental, or you could actually kind of tally something up. If you're home a lot, you could put a tally like positive thought, negative thought. I've done this for personal things too, not just in my business, but if we're talking about your business, I want you to be mindful of that. And I'm making sure that I have this prop too. Okay. So you can sit here and you can think about the reasons that things might not be going right. And just so you know, these thoughts, they're not real. They're not based off of anything that's happened. They're not actually happening. They're thoughts. Same with these. These aren't real. Like your best case scenarios, sorry, it's hard for me to get in frame. Your best case scenarios are also hypothetical. They're also not actually happening. They are just thoughts and stories. Okay. So first take note of that. Then take note of the fact that if you're spending a lot of time here, you can't also be here. And when you're here, you can't make empowered decisions because the choices that we make affect the outcomes that we receive. The choices that we make are determined by what we believe. And it's okay for you to believe one or the other. I think you should really start identifying which do you want to believe so that you can either do nothing and cross it off your plate so that you can free back up your mental capacity, or actually start taking steps into the strategy and the action that is going to get you what you want, instead of into the mindset of, is this even worth doing? Because if I had to guess, you're spending a lot of time kind of longing for something, yet writing out all the reasons that you can't have it or it's not real. And so you're not spending enough time believing in this so that you can actually start taking the actions related to it. So when you start to recognize this, start to notice again, the best case scenarios and the worst case scenarios are all fiction. You are creative. You are coming up with stories. They feel real. They're scenarios being played out in your head of worst case things. So some types of things are like, you'll invest money, you won't get it back. You will pitch yourself, you will get rejected. You will maybe land a client and mess it up and embarrass yourself and your reputation. You will go to a networking event and turn red and embarrass yourself. You will try and fail. There's so many different things. Oh, and like AI will come for your job, right? AI will come for your job. That's going to come up here too. I have a whole episode on that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. I have an episode on AI on my podcast and on YouTube. You can just search will AI replace bookkeepers, profits, and Prosecco, and you'll find it. But once you recognize that you are writing these stories, I want you to ask yourself, are you writing a good one? Is this story actually getting you what you want in your life? Is it fun to listen to this story? Because if it's not, you have the complete choice and power to tell yourself any story you want. So on Threads just now, as I was thinking today about all of the things I want to talk to you about, one of them was like, you are delusional. Your thoughts are delusional. I have a history to act in delusional optimism, and it gets me pretty far. I always think I'm going to do better than I do. And I continue to do that delusionally. I'm like, that's going to work. That's going to work. That's going to work. And sometimes it doesn't work. So you know what I do? I go on to the next thing and I figure that out and I get all excited and I think it's going to blow up, and it doesn't always, but it always does something. So when you recognize that you're telling yourself these stories, again, ask yourself, is this the story that I want to hear? I did this in my personal life a few years ago where I realized that I was literally kind of in a cloud of thoughts all day long, and they were really negative and they were not happening. They were thoughts. And I realized that I could tell myself a different story. So I started doing something that's more of a visualization, but I actually have these timers. If anybody has one of these timers, I would highly recommend pulling it out and putting it in a place where you spend a lot of time. So for me, that's like my kitchen. Mine could be right here in my kitchen. It could be in your car. It could be at your desk. It could be wherever you do find like a home base. Get one of these and keep it there. And ask yourself, if you have just spent 10 minutes thinking about the worst case scenario, how long has this timer been running? How much sand is accumulating in the bottom? How long have you been thinking, I want a bookkeeping business, but it's not for me. I want a bookkeeping business, but I'm not going to be able to learn the skill. I want a bookkeeping business, but I'm too busy. I want a bookkeeping business, but I have kids. I want a bookkeeping business, but I'm too old. I want a bookkeeping business, but I don't have an accounting degree. You know, whatever it is, or whatever it is that you're thinking, how long has that been going on? We get lost in negative thought spirals. They go on for a long time. They happen while you're driving, while you're walking around doing chores, while you're in the shower. You are talking yourself out of your dreams. You are keeping yourself safe. You are telling yourself why you can't do it, and you get lost there. You almost completely zone out and go on autopilot, listening to this story, this made up hypothetical thing that you're telling yourself that's grossly negative. How long have you been doing it? And if you think you've been doing it for 30 seconds, that's probably about how long this is because this is a toothbrush timer. There's quite a bit of sand here, right? I want you to challenge yourself. If you have thought spiraled in negativity for 30 seconds, flip it and give yourself at least that long to think positively. While you're asking yourself all of the reasons you can't, have you also asked yourself all of the reasons you can? While you have asked yourself, what are the things that could go wrong? Have you also spent an equal or greater than amount of time asking yourself, what could go right? What has gone right? What could that look like? What could success look like? What could it look like if I go to the networking event and I find out I'm not necessarily that shy. I just haven't been in the right room. Or I had one meaningful conversation and I enjoyed it and I realized this isn't scary and I can do more of these and I start to see that this is possible. What if instead of thinking that you can't serve that client, you start thinking about what it looks like and feels like to receive a thank you email, a gushing text, a voice memo from your client thanking you for getting it together, thanking you for that relief? Have you spent an equal or greater than amount of time asking yourself what could go right? This is a very good practice, both in business and your life, especially if you struggle with fear based thinking or negative thoughts. And we do. We live in a fear based world. We live in a quite negative world. It's not your fault for doing this, but recognize that. So my timer just ran out. Literally challenge yourself to get delusionally optimistic. I mean, go big, because you are doing this in the negative realm. You are feeling like when I do this, when I start to worry, it's a dim scene. It's like a kitchen table that I've never lived in and it's dim and things are abysmal, right? And that's a really dramatic scenario that I'm creating. So when I flip this and I decide to get delusionally optimistic, I go big. I mean, totally unrealistic because we're playing a game anyway, right? And you'll immediately start to feel better. So just recognize you can spend 2 minutes here or you can spend them here, but you cannot do both at the same time. Where do you want to be focusing your thoughts, right? That is a really, really big one. Okay, now I'm looking at some notes to keep me on track. So I talked about, yeah, we can focus on fear or we can focus on belief. We can look for the reasons why we can't, or we can look at the ways that we're similar. Those are it. So like write it down and think, what is the antithesis? What is the antithesis of this? What is the opposite? What can I believe? Where can I look for proof of this? So you will have this idea and belief and fear. I'm going to use AI as the example here. AI is going to replace bookkeeping. I strongly think the answer to that is no. Even if it eliminates a lot of our tasks, which, by the way, it's so far from doing right now. You have to have some level of experience with bookkeeping to understand that and AI to understand that. And it can be a tool, but it also, like the process that I have with my bookkeeping, we're so efficient. It's not a high thing that we're doing, and we're still bringing in clients and bringing in new revenue. Okay. So you can think about the fear of that, and you can look at the opposite. I feel like I lost my train of thought there right now, because I was going to give an example about AI. That hypothetical situation, like you're looking at that, you're looking for proof. So when you come up with this fear, AI is going to come for my job, you'll be thinking that, you'll be looking that up, you'll be looking for blogs and articles and things that will confirm the thought that you have. That's just how our brains work. We come up with a thought and we look for ways to confirm it. It's confirmation bias. So you can pursue a reason why that's right. You can pursue a bookkeeper who said that, I mean, I don't know any, but you could find it. A bookkeeper who said AI took their job, or you can look for somebody who is growing even in this AI era. But you can't really pursue both because they're in different directions. So it's like, I'm going to pursue, is AI coming for my job? Or I'm going to pursue, people are definitely succeeding anyway. Which direction do you want to go in? This is a choice. And what you look for, you will find. There will be proof of basically anything. So which one do you want to look for? That is one big thought. And again, we have this tendency to look at these hypothetical fears. I just wanted you to see like a flip again. So we're looking for proof of our hypothetical fears that AI is going to kill the bookkeeping industry, because this hasn't happened. And I don't think that it will. So it's this fear, or we can look at real success. Because what I notice is people will try to distance themselves from real success stories. People are actually doing this. This is real. For me, I doubled my corporate salary working in a bookkeeping business in a fraction of the time that I used to work in corporate. That's real. And I'm not any different than you. I'm not. I do have a different level of maybe education and experience, maybe, but a lot of the people that come to me don't. And I've spent a lot of time thinking over the last 6 years, as I'm so immensely grateful for the changes that bookkeeping made in my life and what's possible that I had no clue was possible when I was hanging out in a cubicle. I had no clue. And I don't think I would have pursued a bookkeeping business had things not aligned like they did for me. So, for that reason, I have worked tirelessly for 6 years, more time on the coaching than I have on the bookkeeping business, trying to spread this message, trying to let you know what's possible for you and giving you resources to get you there a heck of a lot faster with support. That's the stuff that we'll go into in the series next week, which is the next step. Series. So katiefarrow.com/step. Make sure you're there. What I'm doing today is getting us away from having to spend so much time busting through these hypothetical and fear-based scenarios that aren't real, these ones, so that we can focus more on this real success, and we can get out of talking you out of your fears and into strategizing your next step that is, taken with action and inspiration, right? So you can look at the fear, or you can look at the opposite, the belief. You can look at the possibilities and the real success stories, or you can look at what can go wrong. And I challenge you to do the more empowered version of this. And I would like to spend more time focusing on people who believe and are ready to take action than trying to call you out of your own paralysis. You have to recognize the pen is in your hand. The story is what you are creating. The track, the loop that's in your head, you have the power to change that disc. That, it's a CD in my mind. You have the power to pop that out of your tape, your player, and put in a new one. It's up to you. You are sitting in a dog cage with the ability to reach your hand through using your beautiful opposable thumb and unlock it and get out of the door. It's up to you. I don't want to spend, my life talking you into this. I would like to spend more time showing you how to learn the skill, enhance your skill, get more efficient, sign more clients, grow your team. I want to spend more time there. Do you? This is a choice. Okay. So again, the stories that you tell yourself a good one. You are delusional either way. Would you choose to be delusionally pessimistic or delusionally optimistic? I know my choice. And just so you know, I do have an old episode, but I will break this down. This is how I make decisions. I am definitely, like I said, not a person that doesn't look at risk. I absolutely do. I go right there first. I look at the worst case scenario. I totally take it down. It's dramatic. It's unrealistic. I go all the way. And I do this in business and in life. And I say, that's the worst case scenario. What would happen if I got there? And then I think about what I would do, and I recognize I have a game plan. There's always something that you would do once you get to that worst case scenario. And when I realize I can handle the worst case scenario, then I'm ready to take the pursuit to get to what could be the best. Because you do have this one thing too. Everybody's always focused on the risk, the cost, but you're not recognizing that. And I brought this, like, risk and cost. We're focusing on this, right? Something negative. And then on the other side, there's something different, right? And it's the possibilities. The risk, the cost, the time, those are finite, they are measurable, they are concrete. So if you're thinking about making an investment, you know the dollar amount of that. And you can figure out, what would I do if nothing returned? You know the time that you're going to allot yourself to figure it out. It's finite. Would you rather spend X amount of hours per week, per month, per year for X amount of years to see what happens? Or would you rather think about it for more time than that and never take a step to see what does? Your time and your investment are finite. They are measurable. They are concrete. You can think about, is it worth it to put that up front, and what would happen if I did and received nothing in return, which is unlikely. That you would get nothing in return, absolutely nothing, very unlikely. On the other hand, the possibilities are not measurable. There's no cap to that. That is an infinite possibility thing, or a measurable risk. So sometimes we try to hoard our resources to not take a risk, and we shoot ourselves in the foot from being able to take a leap into something that could return us something over and over and over again. Time, money, all of the things that you would invest, mostly time and money. You can get those things back by freed up time, by increased revenue, by a team, by learning the skill, by by one client in the bookkeeping world, one client. Do you really think you're not going to get one client? And honestly, if you really think you don't have what it takes to learn the skill, if you don't want to put in any work or any time, if you really think you're bad at numbers, and if you really think you would mess this up, you should stop. You should stop. And you should unfollow every bookkeeper account, and you should go pursue the thing that's right for you. We're not all meant to be bookkeepers. That's obvious, right? So you should stop, and you should stop obsessing over it, because the time that you're thinking about something is time that you're not giving elsewhere, because your thoughts can only really truly be in one place at one time. So you should decide, like, do I want to bury this? And if so, you really should. And you should move on to either finding more peace in your current circumstance or looking for whatever else it is. You know what I'm saying? That is so big. Okay. And then I want to talk about this one question too, because it probably should be its whole own episode, but it really stuck with me. And I feel like it's more along the lines of this thread, which is, one of the questions that I got was, and I'm used to this one, do you think AI will replace bookkeeping? It said, in the next 10 years. And I'm like, in the next 10 years? Are you really not taking action on your bookkeeping business because of what you think will happen in 10 years? Lovingly, are you really doing that? Like, I want to shake you. I want you to rewind 10 years and really put yourself back in where you were and who you were and what you were doing in your whole life, not just your business or your career or your education. And I want you to think about who you were 10 years ago and who you are now, where you live, who you surround yourself with, relationships that have come out of nowhere or fallen off that you didn't expect, circumstances that changed for whatever reason, for good or bad. Did you see that coming? Did you? If you did, I'm interested, because I don't know a lot of people who could predict 10 years from now, 10 years ago, right? So the same for you. We have no idea what's coming in 10 years. What I do know is that sitting on your butt and thinking about the reasons that you can't or shouldn't even try, I mean, it's really convenient. It allows you to continue sitting. It allows you to play the victim. It allows you to not take action. It allows you to never fail or embarrass yourself. And that's really convenient, right? But it is such an excuse, because if you get off your butt and you actually start moving, it doesn't matter what happens in 10 years, because you'll be in motion, you'll be learning, and you'll be ready for that next pivot. You're not just ideating on if this is right and what will happen next. You're in the room. You're in process, so that when things change, because things always do, you're ready to just veer this way, veer that way, and be on the path to whatever happens. Things change in all industries. Interfaces change, processes change, usually for the better. And then we find another way to help. I've got infinite ideas of ways that we could help, but I also work closely with 50 clients actively, and more than that in the past. So I know deeply how business owners work, and I know deeply the basic things that they struggle with and the things that they break that require a human brain that works the way that ours does to actually help. So I wouldn't mind if we automated some clicking and some tasks so that we can work faster. We already charge a low amount and give a high value necessary service. Like, we're one of the safest. But I guess that makes sense why people who have the personality to want the black and white bookkeeping and the click, click, done, and knowing that you're done, why you would also overthink and overfear even when you're in one of the safest industries. I think that makes sense. But we have to stop just hanging out here. I'm bored of that conversation, candidly. I am bored about talking you out of your unrealistic fears and like coddling you while you sit and don't take action. I'm ready for you to actually take action so we can do some fun stuff. Are we ready? Okay. Now, a question that keeps coming up for me. Again, I probably should do a whole different episode on this, and I may highlight it separately so I can go a little deeper into this. But a question that comes up for me is, what is my biggest regret? Like, what was the hardest thing? What do I wish I knew when starting? And to be honest, because I am so delusionally optimistic and because I have so much genuine fun with this, I spend about zero time thinking about what went wrong when I'm in an uncomfortable position, which happens, right? It can be tech related. It could be with like their system, though I honestly love that challenge of like, we're running into something hard now. How can we fix it? Like, I enjoy that. It's one of the things that I like the most about bookkeeping. But with client relationships or internal team things, I mean, obviously, in the past 6 years, there have been some interpersonal things like that. They're not the funnest, right? They never make me want to shut down. They're always fine and they're always fine fast, but they're not really like regrets or things I wish I knew because it's part of it. And it's always like, well, I take like again, it's not optimistic, but I try to be empowered in the way that I move. I try to make sure that I'm always me, that I'm always in integrity, that I don't let anybody or any circumstance kind of bring me down. So if it's a team or a client thing, like I'm moving myself through that with grace and professionalism throughout. And I like that test of like, how can we do that? So I don't have regrets. I don't have a list of like a sob story. This isn't a rags to riches story. It's not hard for me to be a bookkeeping business owner. So I don't have a lot of things that I can say are regrets. Not that the moments were always the most comfortable, but I don't remember them. It's almost like childhood, where if you have, a typical childhood, that's obviously not traumatic through and through, but like a typical childhood, when you think about your childhood, all you think about is the highlight reel. All you think about is the greatest parts of being a kid. You don't remember the hard parts because it's not what sticks with you. And that's what I want you to know. I'm in motion. So I get all the fun and all the awe that comes with the bookkeeping business. So I don't remember or spend time thinking about the discomfort in a way that's more than how I would handle it next time. I don't wish that I had done anything different other than maybe knowing what was possible sooner. But I really believe too, like I don't see a time where it would have really been necessary. But I can tell you that, my circumstance was a little bit different in the way that I got to, my hair's bothering me, in the way that I got to get out of corporate before I had to do corporate and motherhood. So a big regret for me had I done it would have been not knowing what was possible sooner and sacrificing my motherhood when I didn't have to. I would have regretted that. But thankfully, I just get to sit in gratitude of the fact that that wasn't the case. So genuinely, this is all something that you can figure out. It's all something that if it goes wrong, one of the greatest things about this business is if you underprice, if you sign a bad client, if you have a bad team member, if you get in over your head, you can figure it out. And you are always figuring it out. So you'll figure out, I underpriced. I'm not going to do that next time. I underpriced. I'm going to raise the rate. I have a client who's not respecting my boundaries. I'm going to enforce them. I have a client who's not respecting my boundaries repeatedly. I'm going to fix my process. I realize where I went wrong and I'm going to fix that. This is something that is constantly adaptable and you're never stuck in a situation that's uncomfortable, but you can get stuck where you are and not taking a leap. And that's the greatest risk that you have. So that is what I want to share with you, is to encourage you to spend some time recognizing that so that we can shift into what is truly possible, what is truly happening today. And we're going to go much deeper inside of the series next week. So make sure you're signed up at katiefarrow.com/step. And if you have any questions, if you want me to give it to you real, if you are spiraling in this one thought, I would love to help you break through. So tell it to me. Put it in the form, in the inquiry, message it to me in your DM, email it to me from a private email address. Like, I'm not tracking who it is. I'm not judging you, but I can see clearly where you are keeping yourself stuck. And I want you to have what's possible for you. And I want you to see that you are more in control than you think. So I hope you found this helpful, and let me know what other questions you have. And otherwise, I will see you next week.